All right, hello everyone. Thanks for joining today. For today's session, identifying common Jenkins issues with CloudBees Jenkins Advisor. This is part of our series going on all week long. Hopefully some of you have been on other sessions. Hopefully we'll see you on some more this week. I just want to let everyone know a few things up front. We are recording this, and so at the end of the week, or possibly Monday, we'll be sending out all of the recordings and slides for everything. We are able to take questions. Please ask them even if you think we may not have time to get to them. We can always take them offline. At the end, I'll put my email address in the chat box, so if you need to get hold of me directly, you can. In a minute, I'm going to be posting something in the chat window that if you just go ahead, copy and paste right into Twitter, make sure that the hashtag is there. The first 5 people who do so all will receive a t-shirt. So I'm just going to give it a second to make sure I don't catch anyone off guard that you all are able to do that. And also in the chat or question window, if you could just go ahead and let me know your name and where you're watching from, that'd be really great so I know that everyone can hear me and we're all set. So I'm going to put that tweet in here right now. There you guys go. I just want to let everyone know we're looking at roughly 30 minutes for this session, including the questions. So just so everyone knows, that's about how long we're going to be taking. Again, even if you think we may not have time to get to your question, please ask it because we can answer it later. But we do have enough to get through that I just want to let everyone know that Brian Dawson is on the line watching questions come in. If you hear from him, he'll most likely just be taking them at the end, but if you hear from him, that he's here for the questions. And for now, I'd like to pass over to presenters, Arno and Ryan. Ryan.
Thanks, Max. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great.
All right, great, thank you. Okay, so our presentation today is really split into 2 parts. First part is about Jenkins Advisor and about the features and benefits of that plugin and really how to install it and how to use it. And then the second part is reviewing a report from Jenkins Advisor and walking you through some of the issues that it can find. So why Jenkins Advisor? Why did we build it and why is it useful? Why should you install it? Well, so if you're a Jenkins administrator, you probably know that a Jenkins environment can be a pretty complex place. I mean, it's pretty easy to install Jenkins and get it up and running quickly. But as you use it and actually add jobs, add users, those pesky users do things like add build agents and plugins, and then they have the the gall to upgrade those plugins and to upgrade the operating system, maybe change network configurations, and so there's actually can be quite a bit of change going on this on your Jenkins instance, and so this can lead to problems, right? So there can be all sorts of different issues that pop up there. But when things go wrong, oftentimes it's hard to know where to look for the problem. Do I look at the operating system, the logs, the Jenkins configuration, or whatnot? And so, so knowing where to look in the first place, much less knowing how to fix it, can often be a confusing experience. And if you're, I think like most people, you probably have other things to be doing besides becoming a Jenkins expert. And so that's why we built Jenkins Advisor, so that we could take the knowledge that we've built in the Jenkins support business for the past several years with really thousands of interactions, and problems from our customers that we've analyzed and diagnosed and solved, and we've turned that into a software product that you can install and get automatic reports and notifications about what's going on in your Jenkins instance. So how does it work? So it's basically Jenkins Advisor, CloudBees Jenkins Advisor, sorry, is actually just a plugin. Like every good thing in Jenkins, it's a plugin, right? So you install the plugin into Jenkins, and the advisor automatically starts collecting information about your Jenkins environment, including the Jenkins configuration and statistics about the agents that you have, and how those agents are connected. And then it also includes environmental information, stuff outside of Jenkins, like different operating system settings and network readings, and then also looks at and collects several logs, all of which we found are necessary to understand why Jenkins is having the problems that it is, or what the problems are. And so that's what goes into this advisor plugin collects, and what we use to analyze the problems. So then there's the phase of identifying the problems based upon that evidence, right? So and so there's at least four categories right now of problems that we can detect. So one of those is performance issues. So I mean, if you had a problem with Jenkins being slow, you're probably not the first. But like any, symptom, a symptom can have multiple causes. And so we've developed quite a big database of things that can go wrong from a performance perspective and steps you can take to improve that. So, but not just performance, but also known issues. So, there are probably, you probably had times in Jenkins where you saw something not work. But there's likely, and we have known of issues that you may not realize are impacting your users, but actual bugs that are happening that we can identify by looking at the data and tell you what they are and how to fix them. And then best practices, so things that you can do to prevent future issues from impacting you, and to take precaution that as your use of Jenkins grows, that you avoid those performance issues in the future, or what have you. And then finally, security, and I think this is a really important topic these days, especially that you are notified quickly. Now, if security incidents are notified on a mailing list, but what's even better about this approach is that what security vulnerabilities affect you right now with Jenkins Advisor. And so, so that's another huge value of the plugin and the kinds of problems that we can identify. And then, so not only do we tell you what the problems are, but we also tell you how to fix them. These reports will include a link to our knowledge base, giving you detailed instructions on how to fix it. So it's nice to know that you need to tune your garbage collection settings, but if you don't have the details on what settings to add and how to tune it, then it's not as useful. But so Jenkins Advisor is the full deal. It's identifying the problems and also giving you the detailed information you need to fix it. And then the other great part of this is that as we find new things, and we're continuously developing and extending this database of new problems, you will be notified on a daily basis about those problems and what's changing. Maybe your usage of Jenkins is changing, and so you'll be notified of any new problems that arise in the future as well. So how do you get started? How do you start using Jenkins Advisor? Well, there's 4 steps. You start with registering for an account. You install the plugin, you configure it, and then you get a report. And so I'm going to walk you through that real quick. And so go on to our demo here. So hopefully you can still see everything. Okay, great. And so the first step is to create an account. And the easiest way to do this is to go to cloudbees.com/signup. If you can't remember that, you can click on the login button and navigate to the sign up link from there. But this is a pretty standard registration form. I've already entered in my email address and other information, so I should include my name, etc., and a password, and then make sure I agree to the terms of service and click create account. So very little information needed to create that account. The key part is the username and password, because we're going to use that in a little bit here on the plugin. So once I've created my account by clicking the create account button, I'm going to go into my Jenkins instance. And so this is an open source Jenkins. It's the latest version, but it could be a CloudBees Jenkins instance. Either way, you don't need to be a CloudBees customer to use this. It's an open source plugin. I'm going to go into my Manage Jenkins link here, and then I'm going to click Manage Plugins to go to the Plugin Manager. I'm going to go to the Available tab, because it's a new plugin that I don't have yet. I'm going to type in Jenkins Advisor, so CloudBees Jenkins Advisor, and I'm going to choose it for installation and install it without a restart. So no downtime is needed to get this installed. And so what's happening right now is that the Update Center, it actually already has installed the plugin and it's ready to use. So downloaded it from the public update site. So now if I go back to the Manage Jenkins screen, you can see at the top I've got this notice about getting daily reports on security, performance, stability by connecting to Jenkins Advisor. So I'm going to click Connect Now right here, and then I'm prompted to enter my my email that basically the account that I created earlier, and then my password. Oh, I hope I did that right. Testing. Success. All right, great. And then I click Connect Account. Now there's some other things I can configure here, but the defaults are fine for me right now. Click that, and there we go. Okay, and so now my Jenkins instance is connected to Jenkins Advisor, and it's starting to collect all the information that Advisor needs in order to analyze what's going on in my Jenkins environment. And so now, after some amount of time for that process to run, we get a report. And I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Arno and let him walk us through that report and some of the details there.
Thanks, Ryan. So yes, after the installation of the plugin, you will have an analysis which will be automatically done regularly. Based on all the information we send to the service, we will verify what Ryan explained to you, the security and various of those kind of issues. So here it is a sample of a report that you could receive, and we regularly see on our side when we receive a bundle, because this is based on what we are doing every day. So at CloudBees, in our support activity, for sure we are receiving a lot of different kind of issues, and we are an automation company. So see, it was just logical for us to automate as much as possible our support activity, and just to try to reproduce everything we can and detect automatically. So here is just a sample of what we can see, because we have several hundred of probes right now, and a lot of knowledge articles to try to help you to solve your known issues and the ones we already detailed and explained. Those here, for example, if we start by the security concerns, security concerns, it may be security which is not activated on your instance. So we can report you if you didn't activate the CSRF security or many other options like this, and we advise you to do it, because it's really important nowadays to take care of all of this, and we do a lot of efforts in the Jenkins community to secure by default the product, and we want to be sure that we use this feature. And sometimes there are some side effects. So some side effects, for some of them are under control, some of them are less, and sometimes it happens that a side effect from a security issue could have something wrong on your instance. So it is the case here for this one I listed here. It is a security 243, which produced a problem of performance on some instances. This problem, we documented it. We documented how to detect it, but Advisor did it for you. So here, you know that you are in that case. We identified clearly this issue, and we explain you why this issue is there, why we change. And here it is related to the security realm, which is called every time you have a user, especially coming from the SCM changes. Those it may impact the performance of your instance. This is something that we fix. We fix it in version 2.7.3 of Jenkins community, and in CloudBees side it was in 2.7.19. But if you are not yet on this version, and so that's why you have this issue, we explain how to deactivate this control, this additional control which was added, and we provide you the option to add in your Jenkins starting options. So it's like this that we can help you every day in the different issues that you can meet to fix them. Another kind of issues, these are the stability issues. Stability issues, for sure, your instance should be always up. You are waiting from your Jenkins instance to be up and responsive. It should be always there to automate all your processes from CI to CD. And those here, a classical or problem you can have in production when your instance is growing, it is a limitation in the number of threads that your operating system can give to your process. Those you can see in your logs, or you won't see sometimes because you don't detect them if you don't have a look at your logs every day, that you have some native threads which are refused to be created. Those, you have a memory issue, or here it's a native thread issue, which is reported in the logs. Thus, you have an out-of-memory error, unable to create new native threads. And thus, we explain, this one, it's not related at all to the product itself. It's not something that, it's not a bug. It's how the JVM is working. It's how the operating system is working. Jenkins requires a lot of resources. It is automating a lot of things. Thus, it needs to create a lot of process and threads for this. Thus, we just explain you what are the best values, the best settings for a Jenkins instance in production, and we explain how to configure your limit, and especially in that case, the number of process, and we will see later, but it could be also the number of files, the maximum number of files which are open, because Jenkins is using a lot of file systems, thus it is important to increase the default value of the number of files which can be managed by your instance. This is the second kind of issue that you can see reported there about the stability. Another kind that we see really regularly, this is about polling threads. So when you are triggering your jobs, you have two possibilities. Either Jenkins will verify if something changed in another system. Thus, we are doing a polling to verify that in your SCM you have something which was changed, and thus we need to trigger a new job, a new build of your job. Or this is the external system which is triggering your job. This is what we advise nowadays. You should use the triggering using webhooks, GitHub webhooks. If you use GitHub, for example, you need to try to launch your jobs only if something changed on the SCM side. But when it's not possible, you are using the polling thread. And so the polling, the problem is that in Jenkins, by default, there is no default value because it's not so easy to define how many polling threads you may need. It will depend on the number of jobs. It will depend because all of this will require resources. We saw previously that your system needs to allocate threads to your instance. If you don't give enough threads, if you consume all your threads to do some SCM controls, some SCM polling, it won't be good. Those we just explained here how to properly configure your instance to set a maximum number of threads dedicated to this activity. By default, we consider that 10 should be enough. If you have a really, really big instance, you can go and add more threads, but you have to take care because for sure it will have a lot of other side effects. And that's why it's better to try to have smaller instances with less job, especially if you are in this situation of having a lot of jobs using the polling mechanism at the SCM level. Performance. This performance is a key for Jenkins also because you need to have your jobs running as soon as possible, as quickly as possible. The problem is that it's not so easy. Here, I listed only few performance issues. This one's related to the memory management, but there are many others related to the file system, related to other systems. The first one, we can have various out-of-memory errors. Yes, because the JVM itself is managing for you the allocation of the memory for Jenkins, the master or the slaves. We have the same kind of controls on the slave side for your bits or on the master side for the Jenkins instance. And thus you may have various out-of-memory errors. We documented the different kind of memory errors you can find in your logs. And then for the different memory errors, we succeeded to diagnose the one we saw previously about the new native threads, but there are many others. Parent gem space, out of memory exception with a GC override, and so on and so on. For each of them, we documented how to properly configure your instance, what are the parameters to set to avoid this kind of issue. Thus, it will be a tuning, and this tuning has to be done locally for each instance. This is not something that a project like Jenkins or a product like CloudBees Jenkins can, by default, select for you. It will depend of your usage of the product. It will depend of what you are doing with it. It will depend of the load of your instance. So that's why it's important to understand these concepts to properly configure your instance. Another kind of issue also related to the memory, but this time it is your process sometimes is killed. Your process is down and you don't understand why. It's not possible. And we can detect, based on the system logs and the dmessage logs, we can detect if this is the operating system which decided to kill your Jenkins instance. Why? Because your Jenkins instance is using too much memory compared to the operating system. And those operating system is protecting itself. It's saying, hey, I don't have enough memory to do my job. Thus, if I cannot do my job, we cannot do anything. Thus, I decide to just kill the biggest process on my instance. Boom, bye-bye Jenkins, your master is down. Thus, we explain how it's working, and we explain you how to verify what is consumed by your JVM. You have to take care because there is not only the heap of the JVM, but there are also the off heap and others kind of memory which is used. So we explain all of this and try to give you some guidance to compare what you have free on your server and what you have, what you need on your JVM side. And you need to take care to never try to allocate to the JVM more than what your operating system can give to the JVM. So we try to explain everything you need to detect and fix this kind of issue. And the last kind of category, like explained by Ryan, these are the best practices. Those best practices, for sure, this is not a must-have. It is really yes, it's a good to have, but okay, you feel free to select if it's useful for you or not. It is based on our experience. Thus, with the number of years that we are processing support tickets on Jenkins instances, we saw a lot of best practices, which are good in the majority of cases. And those best practices, for example, we have the JVM garbage collector. So the JVM is managing for Jenkins automatically the memory, and there is a garbage collector doing the cleanup. There are various generations of the garbage collector, and nowadays in Java 8, by default, you have the CMS one, I think. I think I will do something wrong, but and the new one is the G1. And if you have a heap which is higher than 4 gigabytes, we advise you to set up and to use the G1 garbage collector. Otherwise, what will be the issue? In fact, you won't see it directly. You will see a lot of little issues with your master. Or sometimes it is slow. Sometimes the UI is blank. It's not responding. Oh, I have some agents disconnections regularly. Oh, all this kind of little issue. It is just because the JVM is frozen, because the garbage collector is doing the cleanup of the memory, and then Jenkins cannot do its work, and thus we have various features which can be broken like this, and it's hard to detect. Thus we try to detect all this kind of stuff. We try to detect when you have a configuration which is not optimized like we think you should do, and thus in that case, if you have a JVM which is more than 4 gigabytes, we advise you to configure it with the G1. Thus, in this article, which is called the Prepare for Support, because for us it is the entry point for all our customers. This is all the advices we give to them to be sure that they properly configure their instances depending on their different needs. So we try to explain to them the different concepts of the memory and all this kind of stuff, the system like we saw previously with the ulimit. In that case, we explain what is the kind of GC you need to configure, how to configure also the GC output, because it is important if one day you have a problem with the memory of a memory issue on your instance and the GC is not performing well, it will be important to have the logs. The problem is that you cannot wait to have the problem to activate the option. It's too late if you want to understand what happened. So it's important to anticipate this kind of issue and to properly configure your instance to give you all the information that you will need to give either for us when you are a customer, but also to the community, because when you are reporting an issue to the community, Jenkins community, it's useful for the developers to understand to have more details about your environment, how you are using it, what are your settings, and so on and so on. Thus, we try to properly explain what are the different kind of settings to apply on your instance, depending of your needs. Like we said, it's different for each of you. We cannot have two people with the same settings, and thus we try to explain the different kind of concepts to be sure that you can properly set up your instance.
All right. Thanks, Arnaud. I think it's fair to say that there's just an incredible amount of information available to you from Jenkins Advisor, or from CloudBees Jenkins Advisor, and really a lot of things that you could probably fix and improve in your Jenkins instance today. And all it takes is downloading this free open source plugin and signing up for a CloudBees account. So really encourage you to give that a try and see what you can improve about your Jenkins usage today. I think we want to open it up to questions, and so Brian, what questions are there that we can answer?
So we have quite a few. First, thanks Ryan and Arnaud, that was great. I'm going to start with a question from Chris. Chris asked, what types of analytics does Jenkins Advisor collect and store on CloudBees systems? And I'm thinking that there's two parts to this question. One, just understanding what we read and analyze, and two, of that, what actually stays on our systems. Ryan, can you help with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, we collect, I think like I said earlier, Jenkins configuration. A lot of it is, I guess, more demographics than the actual configuration. And we also collect Jenkins logs and then kernel messages as well. And then there's output from a few operating system commands that we collect. Here's the real complete answer is that on that configuration screen that I showed, you can actually, if you go into, actually I didn't show this here, if you go into Manage CloudBees Jenkins Advisor and click on the Advanced button, you can choose what information that you would like to give us. And so the less information you give us, of course, then the fewer things we'll be able to find and discover. But that's one tool that you have there. And then the other answer there is that this is based on open source components. So CloudBees Jenkins Advisor, you can access the source code for that on the Jenkins GitHub page. But I think probably what is more interesting is the what we call the CloudBees Support Core plugin. And so this is actually the engine of the data collection. It's what we use in our support process. And so that's where all these different collectors come from. And so again, you can see that source code in the Jenkins GitHub project and get more detail about what exactly is being collected and submitted to CloudBees.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, so I'm going to move on to a question from Jenny Bolton. And Jenny asks, I was trying to create a pipeline and I keep getting a plugin container exception notification or exception. And she asked, would Jenkins Advisor help me figure out exactly which plugins were presenting the issue?
It depends where it happens, because in the process of writing a pipeline, it could be at the job level or it could be in the shared library. It depends on the kind of issue. I don't have in mind this one especially, but what we don't have right now in the support bundle, these are information about your jobs. So we just have statistics about your jobs, but we have no information about the jobs you are creating and running for privacy purposes mainly also. And thus, we don't know if the issue just occurs at the job level. If this is a stack trace that you will see at the job level, we don't have access to it in the bundle, so we cannot detect anything. But if the issue is something which is centralized at the master level, so it is detected by the master itself because it's a side effect of, don't know, the execution of the pipeline shared library or something like this, it's something that we could track. and we could try to identify. This one, I don't have it in mind. So I don't know at all if it could help us, but globally, yes, we can. As soon as we have some logs that we can detect in the support in the master, we can automatically create a probe for it and write a KBI as soon as we have we understand the issue and we can explain it properly for everyone.
Yeah, and I think Arnaud brings up a good point that may relate to some of the other questions here. Is that the way that CloudBees Jenkins Advisor is created? It's an ever-growing knowledge base or an ever-growing repository of Jenkins expertise. So as Arnaud said, as we encounter new issues and we learn about new issues, we will extend the database. So if you are subscribed to the service or your system is connected, you will continually get access to new information and checks. And I think that leads us well into Mike's question, which is, can the system be trained to ignore intentional OOM errors during test execution?
Okay, so I'll answer this one. So I think what the question is asking about is if I have Jenkins pipelines or build jobs that themselves are running code that results in out-of-memory or errors. And so what's going on in your build and the console output from your build, that's not analyzed by Jenkins Advisors. That kind of goes back to what Arnaud was saying, is that we don't collect that build information, and so that's probably something important to say in reference to the first question, is that certainly there's a lot of proprietary information and artifacts and that sort of thing in those build logs. And so anyway, what I guess the answer is that if you are running tests that result in errors or out-of-memory errors in your build logs, that will not be analyzed by Jenkins Advisor.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. And actually, so we have a question from Emashu. Can we get a report of how many builds get queued? We would like to understand whether we need to increase our build agent pool by how many machines, and if there's a pattern in the iteration when there is more likely to build a backlog. Ryan or Arnaud, can you provide an answer to that question?
Yeah, it's not so easy. The generation of data, it is a snapshot. So it is a vision of your instance at a given moment. So technically, we have this snapshot, and this is what we analyze. But for sure, we have some historical data of the usage of the slaves, for example, or the number of jobs which are in the build queue, or things like this, because it can be a source of an issue if you have too many jobs in your build queue. Those who have this kind of information, can it help to detect what are the recurrences and how to better provision your instances and your agents? It's more difficult. You will find the information in the bundle, but on our side, we don't have a good way to be able to identify if you need to add more slaves. What we can advise you, it is if you have too much jobs in the build queue or something like this, but we won't be able to go deeper because it can depend of a lot of parameters to detect why you aren't able to allocate enough resources for your builds. Those, it's not so obvious. Those, no, for now, we don't have, these are the things we do in the support side for sure. When we have this kind of case, we analyze and we try to understand with our customers how to do this, but it's always for now a human interaction. We didn't automate this.
Yeah, I'd like to also speak to that if I could. So while that's not something, hey, Brian, let me just finish that, follow that up real quick. You know, while it's not something that we solve from a Jenkins Advisor or CloudBees Jenkins Advisor perspective, the build agent elasticity is a problem that CloudBees can help solve, and that's through our CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise tool. And so CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise provides really a cloud-based version of Jenkins that has some elasticity, especially around the build agents, because that's something we hear all the time, is people running out of build capacity. And so that's really where we should probably point you to solve that problem is using CloudBees Jenkins Advisor or CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise to get that dynamic build pool.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Ryan. I was going to say something similar. So we'll take one more question as we lead into that. I will note that there was a question about what market this is for. I think it's important to note that CloudBees Jenkins Advisor is an open source plugin, and it is available to any Jenkins user, not only CloudBees customers, and it is free for use. It has benefits to helping optimize Jenkins for continuous integration or continuous delivery or even general automation. In terms of how you activate CloudBees Jenkins Advisor, Ryan, why don't you go ahead and comment to this? You may want to share a visual, but there's a question asking if we could repeat again how to activate Advisor. Before I hand it to you, Ryan, of course, I'd like to encourage everybody on this call, if they're interested in the plugin and interested in finding out how it operates, it really only takes a couple of minutes to get it installed, to sign up, and start getting reports. And Ryan, maybe you can refresh us on how to get that on.
Yeah, I think when you say activate, there's kind of two steps for that. So one was actually installing the plugin from the plugin manager, and I've already done it here, so it's actually on my installed tab. But just to refresh you, just like it's like any other plugin, I would go into the available tab and search for it. Let's see, Advisor. Well, so it's not on this tab, of course, because I've installed it. So here's where it would show up. So, but again, install it, click that, and then click the install button, and that will install the plugin without having to restart Jenkins. And then I can go to the Manage Jenkins side. Now, if there's not an alert up here, I just go to the Manage CloudBees Jenkins Advisor, and then I enter your email and password. And so that's really how you activate it after installing it. And click Connect Account. Yep.
Yeah, noting if you don't have an existing account from the screen, you can create one, as highlighted there. Create one now. And we shared a link in the chat, or we will share a link in the chat to the sign up page for Advisor. So thank you. Max, I guess over to you to sign us out.
Sure. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Arno. And thanks, everyone, for watching today. There were some great questions. I'm going to just one more time put my email here into the chat window. If there's anything else that you think of or need help answering, or you're looking for more information, feel free to give me an email, and we will get the recording to you later in the week. And I hope to see you on some more sessions this week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.